Welcome to Padawan Library. I'm Tim.
I'm Levi.
And this is the podcast about Star Wars Junior novels. And I'm coming in quiet, but the reason being we're recording these out of order. I like spilling all the beans, Levi. Mm-hmm. We're recording these out of order. The episode you heard last week we're recording the day after this episode. And so this is the first episode we recorded since the infamous fight episode we had 2 weeks ago for the followers. And I'm just trying to come in relaxed.
Good. That's
and
good. Me too.
It's fine. I when I was editing the episode, I was just like, oh man, the problem is I keep bringing it up all the way through the end of the episode, so I really can't cut anything. I was like, I figured out there's a way I could have cut that first segment down, and the argument wouldn't even be in the episode because it's actually pretty segmented. But then I was like, I bring it up like 500 times about how sorry I am. Anyway, ridiculous. So yeah, this is a pretty laid back episode. It's a mailbag episode, and I have a couple other little segments planned, but we're still kind of decompressing from Jedi Apprentice, and we'll start kind of our next big project. Our next big project's not till November, but we're gonna get back to reviewing books next week. But
right. With what is it, Jedi Prince 2? I
yes.
don't know the title.
What is it?
The subtitle of that
Lost City of the Jedi? Is that it?
I think you're right about that.
I still have to buy that book, but I've got.
Oh wow!
I've got about 2.5 weeks at least. The thing is, we're banking episodes again. We're doing 2 episodes in 2 days, so that we're gonna have a week off. It'll be nice. I'm back in school.
Such a relief.
We're traveling this weekend together, so it's gonna be a nice break for us.
Especially because the reason we're recording these episodes out of order is because both of us have not finished reading Master and Apprentice yet.
Yeah. And listen, I'll say this: I don't know if things changed by the time I finished the book. I really like the book, so there you go.
The book's good.
I'm over halfway through it. It's a delight. Claudia Gray is a treasure in Star Wars time.
Mm-hmm. And some of our questions today are going to end up actually referencing that book. And
we might talk a little bit. We might have already talked about some of this stuff a little bit last week, but we'll get more into it here. So before we get to the questions, and thank you, by the way, to all our listeners who did send questions. Listeners and past guests, by the way. Mm-hmm. But I have one more thing to do, and I don't know. We've talked about StarWars.com in the past, and I was looking on it, and I was like, is there any news that we could talk about too, or something like that? There's not really any big news post D23. If there's any news that happens between now and when this episode comes out, sorry, we're not discussing it, and maybe we'll discuss it next week. Anyway, next week. Okay. But I was just looking, and they for the last several years have been posting these quizzes, the BuzzFeed style, like, what is this to you or whatever. And so I picked out 3 of these quizzes, and I want to give you one of these 3 quizzes. I'm going to give you these 3 options, and you can pick.
I cannot wait.
Okay, so these are the first one's pretty simple. Just which droid are you? Okay.
All right.
So,
all right.
That's a simple one. This next one is, a little more complicated, and I understand if you don't want to do this. Where in the Star Wars galaxy should you take your date for Valentine's Day? So where should you and Mel's next romantic evening, where in the Star Wars galaxy will you go?
All right.
And then The funniest one. I don't even understand what this could be, honestly. Which Star Wars The Last Jedi quote should be your comeback?
What?
I have no clue. By the way, these are all written by the StarWars.com staff. They don't credit individual writers, so I just, I want to put that out there, but yeah.
Wow. Well, the Last Jedi one seems so intriguing, but I love the Valentine's date one. How about this? I'll do the date one, and I'll quiz you on what is your Last Jedi quote.
All right, you pull that up while I ask you the date questions, and we'll.
Okay, all right. Where do I? All right.
Just search for it, quiz which Star Wars The Last Jedi quote should. I'll send you the link on Facebook. That's
okay. That would be very helpful.
That makes sense. But yeah, there it is. Anyway, so okay, we'll do yours first though. Okay, so
all right,
where in the Star Wars galaxy should you take your date for Valentine's Day? So here's the first question.
Valentine's Day a long way off.
Yeah, well, okay, it doesn't have to be Valentine's Day.
I like to plan ahead. I do like to plan ahead. So
there you go. Yeah, you might as well.
Hear this, Mel? This quiz is about what planet I should take you for Valentine's Day. So. She said Cloud City, but we'll see. We'll see. All right. Hit me.
You could just listen to her, but no, you have to come up with some.
No.
That's where she wants to go, but no. All right. Okay. Question 1. Describe your partner. Here's the options. High maintenance, Jesus.
Oh, Lord.
A connoisseur of the arts, easygoing, or courageous. Those are your 4 options.
She's courageous.
Courageous, okay. That is certainly the most complimentary one, although connoisseur of the arts, I guess, would also be applicable, maybe. I don't know. They're all very specific, I feel like. Okay. Number 2. What did you do last Valentine's Day? And here's their 4 options. I flew casual. Something exciting. Something low-key. Or nothing special.
Oh, damn it, she left the room. I honestly cannot remember what we did. I'm going to say probably something low-key.
Yeah, if you can't remember, it's either that or nothing special. And I feel like nothing special would be a more negative connotation, so...
Do you remember what we did Valentine's Day?
We would have been in St. George, right?
Yeah. Nope, she has no clue either, so...
Let's say something low-key, because it sounds like there's no negative memory there, but nothing special seems negative to me. I don't know. Something low-key. All right. Number 3. Which Star Wars character would you choose to take on a date? Oh, boy.
Oh,
you got 4 options. One of these options is wild. Give me a second. All right, I'm going to actually switch the order here, because the last option. Anyway. All right. Rose Tico, Padme Amidala, Lando Calrissian, or Chancellor Sheev Palpatine.
Oh, damn.
I cannot believe that's an option.
Well, just based on personal beliefs, I'm going to have to go with Chancellor Sheev Palpatine.
Personal beliefs? You align yourself with Sheev? You stand with Sheev?
Well, he's
your Chancellor? Nothing but respect for your Chancellor is what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah.
God, you fucking fascist.
The fact that he's an option, I have to choose him. The fact that he's an option alone.
I feel like this is not going to result in a date that you or Mel will enjoy, but okay.
It's probably just going to result in Coruscant.
Yeah, probably. Who knows?
If anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Number 4. What's your ideal Valentine's Day gift? Jewelry, candy, a dozen roses, or action figures?
Jewelry, candy, a dozen roses, or action figures.
I don't know if that means what you would receive or what you would give. And by the way, there's just a picture of, like, the picture on this question is Leia in Last Jedi. I don't really understand, but okay. And she's not, like, getting it's not like her getting the thing from Luke. It's just her, like, on the bridge looking.
I'm going to go with candy.
Candy? All right.
Yeah.
Okay, 5. What kind of music do you listen to? Classical, smooth jazz, classic rock, or pop music?
Well, the music that I do listen to isn't on there. Of course, it's jizz. But
Yeah, smooth
I guess
jazz.
I'll go
What
with...
the hell are you doing, StarWars.com?
Yeah, what a missed opportunity. Damn writing staff of StarWars.com. So what were the last two options?
Classic rock and pop music.
I guess I'll go with pop music.
Oh, you don't like Rihanna, so I'm not sure how much you like pop music. But... All right, 6. What type of date do you prefer? An adventure, a nature hike, a sporting event, or a concert?
I like a nature hike.
Nature hike? Yeah, that seems like your vibe, especially the last couple years. Let's see.
I love nature. I love trees.
Yeah. Oh, trees are dope, as we know. Number 7. How do you show that you care about someone? By teasing them. I think it depends on what way you care about them, but okay. By teasing them. By buying tickets to a show. Taking them to their favorite restaurant, or introducing them to your friends.
That's
complicated, I feel like.
I'm gonna go with teasing them, I guess. We do a lot of teasing to each other, so we'll go with that.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, number 8. Pick a type of cuisine to make for your date. A greasy burger. I don't know why I said it like that. A picnic lunch, lobster, or, oh boy, let's skip straight to dessert. Oh man.
Oh my.
Things are getting hot and heavy on StarWars.com.
I guess a picnic. I mean, I would make burgers, but it's like that's not like something romantic at all.
Yeah, that's more of a party, like you and some friends or something. But yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a date food. Yeah, okay. Picnic.
No.
All right.
A greasy burger, too.
All right. Oh, Lord. Number 9. This is the last question. When someone says, I love you, the only proper response is, I know, or I love you too. You only get 2 options.
Oh.
I feel like either is appropriate depending on the situation.
Exactly. If
you say I know, like the first time, like that works for if you're Han Solo, but if it's the first time someone says I love you and you say I know, it's like a douche.
You're
move.
just a dick.
If you're not Han, like Han Solo works because he's Harrison Ford. It's like it just works,
right? And I also feel like there's no way this question has any impact on what planet we choose. There's no way.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna just go with I love you too.
There you go. Okay. Right. Well, here's what you got. You ready?
Right. Yep, I'm ready.
You two are going to go to the... Wait. You and Mel are going to enjoy the meadows of Naboo!
Ooh!
Pack a picnic lunch and enjoy a relaxing afternoon in the countryside, sitting in the lush grasses, picking wildflowers, and laughing with your sweetheart.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah, we're definitely going to ride those things, and I'm going to pretend to be trampled by one of them, and you're going to think I'm dead, and it's going to be and then we're going to end up tickling each other. Yeah, it'll be great.
And there's also, let you make an executive decision. You can either give me that Last Jedi quiz, which sounds insane, or they have still need a date. Find out which Star Wars character would be your perfect match if you want to get me a date in Star Wars.
I want to do.
We'll do that another time. Let's do that around Valentine's Day.
For Valentine's Day.
Let's remind ourselves. Yeah. That'll be funny. But we need this comeback thing. All right.
Yeah. Also, too, like even if I chose Sheev, my second choice would have been like Padme. Of course, it would have been Naboo no matter what. That's both their home planet. So
no, I don't think the Sheev thing wound up affecting things too much.
So who was? Oh, so Rose was the first choice.
It was
so
Rose,
if you pick
Padme, Lando, Sheev.
So Lando would have Cloud City.
Yeah,
I don't know what
up.
Rose would have been, unless Canto Bite. But Rose hates Canto Bite, so.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, unless they're bringing in stuff from the book Cobalt Squadron, which we have yet to read. Like, I don't know if we know much
day.
about, like, a location she would enjoy. I mean, I guess, yeah, I don't know. But, like, yeah, where the most romantic moment involving Rose happens on Crate, which I doubt she would want to return to.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just like a salt planet, so
I mean, I guess,
why would you want to go there?
I guess there's kind of the moment with the fathiers and whatnot, which, by the way, were mentioned in Master and Apprentice, I saw. Anyway.
All right. Well, are you ready to know which Last Jedi quote should be your comeback?
Yeah, I guess.
And I think you should say this all the time now after this, so we'll see. We'll see. So this definitely need to be your new catchphrase. So
Lord,
this is going to be 10 questions. Question number 1. How do you normally win an argument? By using facts, using threats, standing your ground, or making an opponent feel small. I feel like 3 of these apply to you really well.
All of these would, like, and we have evidence from a couple weeks ago that I use all of these. Well, let me look. Let me think.
All right. Use facts, use threats, stand your ground, or make your opponent feel small.
that sounds terrible. Let's go. I don't want to say stand your ground because of, like, racists in Florida, but
right, yeah.
But that
we're not in Florida.
Maybe the most like. Yeah, like, I'm a forceful arguer, but for the most part, with the occasional exception, I am not that bad, I don't think. I don't know if I use threats.
Stand your ground is
stand
good.
Your
yeah,
ground.
We'll go with that. All right. Who do you most stick up for? The underdog, the system, whoever is most powerful, whoever is right?
That's... I mean, I guess the underdog is the only actual answer. Like, I'm not going to say I stand up for the system. Like,
right?
Like, it's like, I mean, maybe people think I do or whatever. I don't know what people think. But,
all right. Question number 3.
This is a disaster.
How do you feel about the coworkers you dislike?
Oh, no.
They can't be trusted. They're incompetent, they're disloyal, they're unintelligent.
Well, I don't think they're incompetent. Okay, the people I actually work with, let's go with that instead of my podcast co-hosts. Let's see, we'll go through the options again.
Okay, they can't be trusted, incompetent, they're disloyal, or they're unintelligent, and there's a photo of Captain Phasma.
These are all so extreme.
I know.
I guess unintelligent.
All right. Disloyal would be the weirdest answer to say.
What reason would they have to be loyal to me?
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't apply to everybody's work situation, I would say.
All right, which is most important to you? Respecting your superiors, getting what you deserve,
oh my God,
following the rules, or the Charlie Sheen answer, winning?
None of these. This is like it's all like way too far on either side for me.
I know. This doesn't apply to anybody.
Yeah. Wait, what was the second one?
That's getting what you deserve.
Oh, Jesus,
that's
that
important
sounds
to
so
you.
Insane.
These sound like all very Sith answers.
Yeah,
like,
I know. I
these
feel
are
like
very light. Like,
that's like maybe the closest. I'm not that like I winning. I mean, I get if you've ever played me in bowling, maybe. Winning
is very important to you. All right, we're gonna go with winning.
Let's go with that. I do the fact that you compared it to Charlie Sheen right away. Like, you referenced that, made me not want to say it. But
oh my God, what makes you the most angry?
Oh God,
Traitors,
Traitor?
Know-it-alls. Yes, traitors. And there's a picture of Hux. They have a picture of General Hux here with like a sneer. So we have traitors, know-it-alls, bullies, or rebels.
Okay. This one's a little more reasonable. I guess bullies. I don't know, like
bullies. Yeah, bullies are terrible.
Yeah. Like traitors. I have not had that much experience with being betrayed, so I can't say how I would respond to that. But yeah.
If you ever are betrayed by anybody, we'll take this quiz again. So, question number 6. What adjective best describes you? And I want to note that there's a picture of Supreme Leader Snoke here.
Oh, God.
Funny, headstrong, intimidating, or reliable?
Almost none of these, I feel like.
You have to pick one.
I do think I'm kind of funny, but I feel like that's a very shitty thing for me to select. And then funny. I am fairly headstrong, as evidenced once again by the many arguments we've been in on this show.
Those
are the two. The other two, what were the other two?
Intimidating.
I'm not
reliable.
Reliable depends on the point in my life. Sometimes I'm reliable. So yeah, I don't know. See, if I wanted to be more negative in my self-assessment, I'd go headstrong. But I guess I want the line to be funny, so that's the other thing.
All right, let's go with funny then. Yeah. All right. Whose brand of sass do you like the most? Oh, Rey, General Hux, the least sassy character, Luke Skywalker, or Leia?
In Last Jedi is what they're asking.
Yeah.
Because in general, I'd say Leia, but in Last Jedi, I enjoyed the Luke sass. So
yes, Luke is very sassy in that movie. So let's go with if it's Last Jedi, let's go with that. All right. Who would you disagree with the most?
Oh, no.
And I want to note here, we have 4 options. 3 of these characters are good guys. Only one of them is bad. And there's a photo of Phasma on with the question, and she is not one of the options.
These are so weird.
Poe Dameron, Rey, Finn, or Kylo Ren?
All right, in Last Jedi, I assume they mean it doesn't matter. Obviously, Kylo Ren. What are we talking about here?
I know, right?
Like, no shit.
All
of course I disagree with it.
All right, I'm going to answer this one for you. Which job would best suit you best?
Oh, boy.
President, soldier, lawyer, or teacher?
Wait, which one?
Teacher, obvious.
What were the other?
A soldier or lawyer?
And teacher?
Teacher,
just those
and
3?
President. President, teacher, soldier, lawyer.
President. Yeah, I mean teacher. Yeah, for sure. That's easy.
Tinker, tailor, soldier, spy. That's what it sounded like. All right. And which would you most like to achieve? Fame?
No.
Justice? Knowledge? Or power?
For myself, personally?
Yes.
All right. Well, there's nothing that needs to be... No, there's no justice for myself that needs to be achieved. So, in a broader sense, I guess justice. But for myself, knowledge. Sure, knowledge. Yeah.
All right. This is the last question. All right. Your quote, your Last Jedi quote comeback, which will now be your new catchphrase, is impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Oh, that's a classic
Luke Skywalker.
That's a classic line. All right. Well,
yes,
I could easily say that to you a million times an episode.
Yeah, you could.
So.
Actually, the problem is
the problem is the reason that I think that our argument a couple weeks ago is so shocking is that we don't actually fight that much on this podcast because we agree on Star Wars most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
right, and Star Wars is like the one thing we do.
So
agree
that's the problem, I guess. I don't know. It's yeah, but I hope I'll have chance to use it.
We need Rise of Skywalker to divide us.
I don't think it will. I think we're going to be roughly. What if it surprises us and it's great? I think we'll be on the same page. But I think
right.
We've been very in step on these movies so far. I feel Yeah.
Unless JJ pulls out another like Star Trek Into Darkness, I think we'll be all right.
Oh well, if that happens, then you don't and you like it. I don't know. Possible. So that's the thing. I think we'll be if it sucks, I think we'll be in agreement about it too. So yeah. Oh,
all right.
One other
read
thing.
This little thing. Okay.
Before we get to these questions, I just wanted to mention you mentioned Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which the original miniseries of that, as you might know, starred Alec Guinness, Obi-Wan himself. Mm-hmm. And speaking of Alec Guinness, I went to see Lawrence of Arabia for my birthday. And that's a movie I saw like once when I was like 10 or 11, 12, somewhere in that range, on like TV or something. If you get the chance, go to that in the theater. That is, I know it's not a original thought, but is that the best movie of all time? I don't know. That might be. So, and Alec Guinness is in that, playing a Middle Eastern person, but what are you going to do? And and yeah, it's really good, and he is
well,
good.
That movie is very important to Spielberg, so
yeah, it's important to George too, I would say. Watching,
I've never seen it, so
you
now
should
I
check
want
it out.
to
I mean,
see it
you
in
don't
the
have to
theater,
wait to get a chance to see it in the theater, although they do play it more often than you'd think at a lot of theaters. Like even I saw it in Erie, Pennsylvania, so it's not like, but it's great. Check out the Blu-ray or something. Definitely don't watch it on some old DVD on a tube television, which I know is your current options. So. That's not a shot at you. I'm just saying. Wait till you have the option to watch it on Blu-ray again more easily.
Right, so. Large TV, large scale.
Anyway, let's move on to our questions. We've been asking for questions for a couple months, and we got a few in, and we got a few like other comments and stuff from YouTube. We're gonna ride this out for as long as it takes to answer these. We got like 7 things to get to, and then we'll wrap it up. It's gonna be a shorter episode this week. We're taking some time off, so because we're not going to get another real break until the end of the year. So,
right, Christmas.
Here we go. So, first I'm just going to say your first names in the future. If you want to let us say your last name, just make a note of that in the email. But I figured, to be fair, we'll just use first names. From Josh. He says, I think he sent a letter before and we read it before, but
he has, yeah, he has.
So anyway, lads, because he called us lads, that's how I remembered. You've mentioned the possibility of a mailbag episode twice now, so I'm writing to do my part and contribute top quality fan content in electronic messaging format. Thank you, Josh. First off, I can't remember which of you doesn't like the cover for The Deadly Hunter. I'm sure we had a huge fight about this last week. Like, I assume this came back up, so I don't want to get too into this. But let me finish.
It will.
But
coming up right now, so
yeah, whatever. I can't remember which of you doesn't like the cover for The Deadly Hunter, but it's choice as fuck. Okay, well, it's me that doesn't like it.
I agree.
Sorry, Josh. Okay, whatever. You should feel bad for not liking it. I feel bad about everything about my life, Josh. You don't need to make me feel bad about this, too. Overall, the best cover is The Shattered Piece because of the spooky allium?
Maybe he was trying to say alien.
Yeah. Looming over Obi-Wan Kenobi's shoulder. What is the Deadly Hunt? Oh, the Shattered Piece. Which one was that?
The Shattered Piece is the one where they were with King Frana or King Frana or whatever, and King Frane. Sorry, that's the one where they like the sun. Like there's the big twist where like the sun tries to like betray.
Oh yeah,
them,
that's like
you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know where it landed in my rankings. I would guess near the bottom.
I think. I would say in terms of like cover, that is like one of my more least favorite covers because I hate how like terrible, like how that alien looks just like the worst puppet in the world.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I'm sure we had a very long conversation about covers last week, so I don't want to get too into that part. This part is
Deadly Hunter is choice as fuck, but
whatever. Okay. Second, I noticed that you guys talk a lot about implied fucking on a lot of this podcast. True.
Very true.
While I was reading Master and Apprentice, still looking forward to that ep, BT dubs. Hope you enjoyed it, Josh. I remember one of Qui-Gon's flashbacks involved Jocasta Nu. and hinted at some sort of past between her and Dooku. So yeah, interesting. I got to that part.
I have finished the thing, and then I have the page bookmarked that I think he's talking about, and I'll go ahead and read it, and then we'll discuss it.
All right. Tantalized, I took to the internet and came across an interview with Alethea McGrath, who is, of course, a household name following her portrayal of Madame Jocasta in AOTC, wherein she describes a deleted scene which sees her character tenderly touching a bronze bust of the Count's face and lamenting his turn to evil. So what of it, gentlemen? In your expert opinion, did Count Dooku hit that back when it meant something? A little bit crass.
All right. Yeah, a little crass.
But that's fine, Josh. We love you. And we also talk about fucking constantly. I can't, whatever.
Yeah. So this is, I have the page here. Let me see if I can find it. Okay. So this is on page 47 of Master and Apprentice. This is what I think he's talking about. At the end of the day, Master Dooku finally brought Qui-Gon to their last stop, the Jedi Archives. The new chief archivist, a woman named Jocasta Nu, welcomed Dooku with a familiarity and suggested that they were friends. As she ushered them deeper into the vast, chambered room, she said, "It's been a while since I've seen you." My interests changed from time to time, Dooku replied, and Qui-Gon wondered why Jocasta Nu frowned at that. So I could see how that could be implied.
Sure.
That reminds me of of course, the masterpiece, First Reformed, whenever there's that chick at the church who, like, they implied that Ethan Hawke and her FUD, and he was just like, nope, I don't want to tap that again.
Oh, yeah, that scene is so brutal. If you haven't seen First Reformed, Paul Schrader's masterpiece from last year, you should check it out.
Yes, great movie. It's on Amazon, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So yeah, but that scene is very similar to that scene. And yeah, I don't
think Dooku's quite as brutal as Reverend Toller is in First Reformed. He says, "I don't want it." I can't even quote it. It's so mean, honestly. Yeah.
Dooku is.
Is there a scene with Dooku later in the book? I haven't gotten to it, where him and some younger woman get down and they float over the expanse of the world? Because that happens in First Reform.
No, that's true. That's very true. So in that way, they're very different. However, if you ever watch Clone Wars, there's an episode where Ventress and the Sith sisters try to assassinate Dooku, and Dooku has an extremely large bed. It's like a king size, but it's like twice the length of an average. It's like you took two king size mattresses and you stacked them on top of each other. So who knows what Dooku was doing on those mattresses?
Okay. Well, Dooku, I'm sure, he became the Count of a planet. I'm sure Dooku has had many sexual partners over the years. All right. And he wraps this up with another question. Finally, I'd like to present you with another choice. And if you remember, he asked us something about whether we want, what we should change in the prequels between two pretty ridiculous options in the past. So, if you had the power to retroactively change the prequels, once again, another thing like that, would you A, make it so that every battle droid has a prissy protocol droid voice and apologizes every time they shoot someone? Or B, make it so that every clone has a southern accent and responds to orders with, "Hell yeah, brother"? Which would be less annoying? First. Let's see. I would kind of enjoy the battle droids with a protocol voice.
Really?
I think that could be funny. I like that sounds like you could actually make that sort of funny, and that could actually work with what the battle droids are there for symbolically, like the mechanization of war and the kind of the scrubbing clean of the image of war. I actually think could maybe somehow work in the same kind of way that it does, maybe even better. Who knows? Actually, I don't think that's as ridiculous. Apologizing every time they shoot someone would get pretty annoying, but the voice I'm less opposed to, but the other one just sounds annoying, so no.
Well, I'm going with the other one
Okay.
because I like this. Well, maybe not the hell yeah brother, but there's a character in Last Jedi who like he's on Canto Bight and he's like this alien creature who's like pointing to the police. It's like they just landed their ship on the beach and I told them they couldn't.
Yeah.
That was not a Southern accent, but the character has a Southern accent, and I find it very silly. It's probably my favorite Canto Bight character. That dude.
Oh, sure.
So,
I'm not, the Southern accent is not really what turned me from it. It's more the hell yeah, brother. Although I guess the apology for the battle droid is similarly irritating. Just the same.
Each one has like a
having a catchphrase,
like a benefit and a negative too. Yeah, so
I'm okay with either of these in terms of the voice, but I don't know about the catchphrases, Josh.
Right.
But anyway, he says, "Take care. May the force be with you." So thank you, Josh, for that very thorough
Thanks,
email.
Josh, man.
Josh Man, he signs it the Josh Man. I guess he is a man named Josh, and that he is the Josh Man. So, next question from Carol, who is a very loyal listener, comments on a lot of our stuff. Thank you, Carol. Here's a question from her.
Thank you.
Here is a question for the mailbag. If Qui-Gon hadn't been killed on Naboo, this is a classic Star Wars question. It's worth discussing.
Mm-hmm.
If Qui-Gon hadn't been killed on Naboo, do you think Anakin still would have turned to the dark side if Qui-Gon had been his master? So, was Obi-Wan not ready to be a master, and was he at fault in his training of Anakin? So,
well, I'll go first, and I'm going to reference Master and Apprentice again, because Master and Apprentice makes Qui-Gon out to be a man who is constantly on the edge of believing in the prophecies of the Jedi,
yes.
and maybe not, but he's obsessed with the prophecies, and obviously the fact that he finds a child born of no father, and he's just like, oh, that classic prophecy, it's coming true. I feel like that no matter what would have happened had Qui-Gon survived, he would have trained Anakin, and he would have probably ended up having to train Anakin outside the Jedi Order. He could have easily just did the same thing Dooku did, left the Jedi Order and trained Anakin. And of course, when you just follow prophecies, there's that temptation of the dark side, which Dooku may have kind of fallen to. It's a little hinted at in that book as well, that the prophecies, pushed him to the edge a little bit.
And I mean, we probably talked about this last time, but I thought the character of Rael in that book was really interesting in terms of the fact that he came into the Order too old, and like the mirroring of him and Anakin was interesting.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know. I've always kind of subscribed to that idea that like part of that, maybe Anakin turns out differently if Qui-Gon lives, and that's part of kind of the basics of kind of tragic storytelling, which is, you change one thing, this doesn't happen, and that's how the prequels are structured, especially Revenge of the Sith. But I think it starts with Qui-Gon's death, and you have kind of if one different choice is made, if one thing doesn't happen, then the chain of reactions that leads to all the bad choices doesn't happen. So I do think that's kind of the beginning, although maybe not the very first thing. Maybe the first thing is Qui-Gon makes the mistake of not freeing Shmi Skywalker, or not fighting hard enough to free her. There's a million different things like that throughout those movies and throughout any story that is kind of structured like a tragedy. But yeah, I don't know. I also think it gives Obi-Wan his kind of tragic flaw for the rest of the series from in the original trilogy, essentially. But which is that he feels like he failed because because he has an alternative path in his mind that doesn't exist, but he believes would have been better. So I do think that's
because this kid falls into his lap, kind of thing. And I mean, Jude, the second part of the question, whether or not he was ready to be a master, I mean, Jude seems to be already like exploring that idea of whether or not like
yeah.
So yep, that's a good question. We'll never know.
We'll never know, but it's always a fun one to talk about. It's a classic Star Wars question. So this is
thank you, Carol.
Yeah, thank you, Carol. This is a fun one. This is from our former guest, Sam McCauley. He was on our episode 1 show talking about the episode 1 journals with us. So Sam asks, what kind of role would you like to see Sir Paul McCartney play in a Star Wars movie or Disney Plus show?
Now he is, I would say, as equally big of a Star Wars fan as he is a Paul McCartney fan.
Yes.
I wouldn't necessarily say he's a Beatles fan, but he's a Paul McCartney
fan. He's a Beatles fan.
Sure.
He just listen. We did karaoke a few nights ago. He and I opened singing "Let Me Roll It," the Paul McCartney song. And he's just like, if you're going to sing Paul, I got to sing John. And he's saying Watching the Wheels. So,
oh, wow.
So, I mean, neither of those are Beatles songs, but, hey, like, he likes all of them, like, any good person.
Yeah, there was one time I got in his car and he had, like, an MP3 player in, and I was looking through it, and it was all Paul McCartney. There was no other artist.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's his favorite. I mean, listen, and Paul is the de facto best Beatle in my mind, although I love all of them for different reasons.
So I put some thought into this.
Okay.
And
we'll let you go first.
I want Paul to show up. I want this to be a bigger role, of course, than his role in the last Pirates of the Caribbean movie.
Although that scene, listen, say what you will about these movies. I saw that movie at work. I'm a substitute teacher, and sometimes they just leave movies or a Netflix password or something. And we watched Pirates of the Caribbean 5, and Paul's scene in that is pretty funny, I have to say. He's like in all kinds of crazy makeup. Like it's a wild scene. Worth looking up on YouTube. It's probably there somewhere.
Yeah, I swear our friend Sam went to see the movie, stayed for Paul, and then left immediately
after
afterwards.
Paul's scene was done. Yeah.
All right. So this is actually an idea that we've discussed years ago. Something that we've wanted to see in this movie because of Oscar Isaac. Because if you don't, we have not talked a whole lot about Oscar Isaac on this podcast. On our last podcast, Missing Reels, we had a whole segment dedicated to Oscar Isaac because. Yeah.
We've been huge fans of Oscar since pre-Star Wars, pre-even announcement that he was going to be in Star Wars. I was obsessed with specifically Inside Llewyn Davis, which is my favorite movie of the decade. And if you do some hunting and find my letterbox, which there's no link to on our show page, but if you find my letterbox, I just published my top 25 films of all time, and Inside Llewyn Davis is the most recent movie on there. So.
Very nice.
I'm a very big Oscar fan. I'm a big Oscar Isaac fan.
And we love Oscar. We sometimes refer to him as the Lord. So if you hear us say the Lord, that might be it. And we had a segment called Oscar Watch, which was entirely a news segment about Oscar Isaac news. We may resurrect that at some point on this show. Who knows?
Yeah, at least he has a Star Wars connection. So.
But something we discussed before was, wouldn't it be amazing if at some point in these movies he sang a song, and if it was like a rousing song to like the rebels' cause, like they're all at their lowest, morale is low, and Poe gets up and he sings a song, and what if they're at a cantina and Paul McCartney's there, and like they all like together, like Paul and
Paul should
Poe,
be an alien though. It should be an alien Paul McCartney. He should be like Twi'lek Paul.
Like, yeah, I was just about to say a Twi'lek Paul.
Yes. He's just like, hey Paul. I can't do a Paul. I'm bad at Paul. But yeah, no, he would. Oh my God, Paul McCartney. Listen, and like he could write the song. It could be his song, or it could even just be a Paul song, just with modified lyrics. Anyway, and people would love that, right? That would be for literally three amazing people in the entire worldwide audience, and it would be me, you, and Sam. It doesn't matter how corny that scene would be. I'd be like, well, this is automatically the best Star Wars scene of all time.
Sorry, George.
George was finally felled by JJ. Yeah, he should be in episode 9. God, throw him in. Anyway, so thanks, Sam, for that. That's honestly, I don't know if I can top that. I definitely would love to see him in like alien makeup. Twi'lek Paul would be.
Because he'd have those big lumps on his head too, like in the front of his head.
Yeah, because I wanted someone where you wouldn't have to obscure his face too much, because that's the one problem with him in Pirates is like he doesn't even. You have to like look. You have to do a double take before you realize it's Paul, and it's really the voice that hints him, that tips you off. But yeah, so he should be in a Star Wars movie at some point, whether it's in that context or not. Who knows? But all right, so we've got a question here from listener Flint, who sent it to us at our email, and he said, "Hey, I read many of the Apprentice books as a kid. Bought the Evil Experiment because yeah, Qui-Gon Jinn on that cover." So he's with you. He's with you on that.
Exact same way I got into it. Yep.
He says, "So this has been pretty nostalgic for 26-year-old me." So he's only a year or two younger than us. Yep. So that's cool. Dave Wolverton may be the wizard of storytelling, but Jude is the genie. I like that.
That's good.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
True.
Although genies are trapped, and she was free to write 40 Star Wars books, so I don't know.
Was she, though? Like,
I
don't know how hard they worked.
You know what I mean. I'm not saying she had total creative freedom or anything, but I just mean, like, she got more freedom at Lucas Books / Scholastic than Dave Wolverton did, so maybe that's...
Yes.
Whatever. I'm belaboring this metaphor. Okay. Strangely, The Phantom Menace is my favorite prequel. Jar Jar is painful sometimes, though. And, I mean, you used to be a Phantom Menace is the best prequel person, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not an unusual thing. There's a lot of people that feel that way. I disagree very, very strongly, because because I think Sith is a masterpiece. But, whatever. That's cool. And he says, favorite extended movie is either Last Jedi or Solo, a Star Wars story.
Mm-hmm,
we're in pretty... That's, hey, that's pretty in line with us. And then he says, big fan of Wampas and the Garbage Chute Monster. You mean the Dianaga, sir? Sorry, I'm sorry. That sounded douchey, Flint. Probably. But yeah, it's the Dianaga.
What were? I was like, because I know we've covered those on this with the frickin' Join the Resistance series.
Oh, yeah.
There was some Dianagas in there. That. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, Wampas are cool. I'm a big Wampa fan. How do you feel about the extended Wampa scene in Empire in the special edition? I know that it's weirdly, I found it to be vaguely controversial amongst some of my friends.
Really?
Yeah.
It's never bothered me.
It's never bothered me, but I know some
think...
people that think that the original version is, like, creepier because you don't get, like, the full view of him or whatever. I think those people might have watched the Jaws documentary one too many times, but it's not like every instance you need to see less of the monster. But yeah, I mean, whatever. It was clearly just a way for him to test, certain effects things, but it works. I think that Empire's changes are mostly improvements.
Minor.
So.
Right, yeah.
Anyway.
Especially with Cloud City, with the windows, that's a huge improvement. So.
And he says, you have gotten me to reread all 3 Jude Jedi series. So this dude read all of that stuff before we even got to the second one. So sorry at our slow pace, but we can't do more than once a week, guys. So and then he says, I think I said my piece. Thanks again. So there's not really a question there, but, thank you for the letter. And it was fun to talk a little bit about Wampas and Dianagas and... it seems like we're on a similar wavelength, even if we disagree about Phantom Menace, or at least I do. I know you.
Well, yeah, me and him, we are on the same. We are the same person, apparently. So.
Not a former guest of the show, but he made a brief appearance on the show, and he will be a future guest on the show.
Oh, yes, he was the referee in the Jedi Draft.
He was the referee for the Jedi Draft, and he's going to be on the show. Actually, I'll just announce it in a few weeks. He's going to be on the first Galaxy of Fear episode. From our friend Brooke, he asks, who would Obi-Wan rather spend his life on Tatooine with, Tim or Levi? See,
this is a very hard
I
one,
think we're both difficult people.
Right? I agree.
I would say in different ways, but also in very similar ways. I would say, like, if that makes sense. Like, we have a couple specific things that make us distinctly difficult, but then we also share some difficult qualities. Would you agree with that?
I would agree. I will say we are not. We don't have. Both of us are not at peace with the light. We both have a little darkness.
Listen, again, I reference.
Like that. No.
It's a good thing that argument happened. Now I'm thinking about it. It's like, okay, well, I overreact and get too mad about things that don't matter. You are very passive aggressive and know what pushes people's buttons, and you can, you know what I mean? And I feel like if you go back and listen to that after that analysis I just did, that's like, oh yeah, that's the problem. They're too.
Yep, that's exactly it. Yep.
Like, you're like, I know if I say fine in exactly the right way, this will infuriate Tim, and I'll just say it that way. And it's like, that's fine. Fine.
And I know if you go,
Yeah, I mean, listen, I have a lot of those similar things too,
shift
but
the balance.
Is my version of that.
Yep.
So, I don't know. Obi-Wan, though, I mean, Obi-Wan can get annoyed pretty easily, actually. Although, I don't know, he's in a different place by the time he gets to Tatooine.
It's hard to say. I would say he would be able to crush us both very easily. Like we would say something, and he'd just have the perfect comeback right away, and just
I mean, I don't know. I think he'd be able to handle it. He can handle like Uncle Owen, who seems like kind of a doofus. He can probably handle one of us. I don't know. I don't know which one's easier or harder to live with. I mean, we don't have any friends who lived with both of us, do we? That we could consult?
No.
Yeah.
No.
The closest, I guess, is our friend Dan, because you went on long road trips with him.
Yeah.
And I lived with him for a couple
We may have
years.
to consult somebody else for this question.
I'll have to think about this. Yeah. We'll get back to you, Brooke, on our episode on Eaten Alive in a couple weeks. Our last question comes from our former guest, and our guest next week on the podcast, Dan May, my brother. He's coming back for Jedi Prince number 2. We got to have him back for a not terrible book at some point.
I agree, but
but
I think he's committed to Jedi Prince at this point.
Yeah, for sure. He said that he'd be willing to come on for a Jedi Quest book, so maybe we should bring him on for one of those.
We should definitely do that then.
We'll figure out a good one in the near future on that, and maybe for Galaxy of Fear, or maybe for Galaxy of Fear, because we actually read those books when we were kids. And we'll talk about that in a few weeks. Anyway. He asks, and this is a very broad question, but and I know we've both been racking our brains about this one for all day, but he says, not to disturb the galaxy's tenuous peace. I think he's referring to our argument from a couple weeks ago. But what does each of you think is their most controversial or unpopular Star Wars-related opinion? So, Star Wars hot takes. Okay. You have one.
I've been racking my brain on this, and I guess this could be a hot take. I don't know how controversial this is. It's definitely not unpopular, because this character is somewhat popular. But I am going to say that Admiral Piat, despite being Admiral in the Empire, was not a bad guy, just a victim of circumstance.
I have trouble saying victim, but I don't fully disagree.
Because he's just at the right place at the right time to just be work his way up the ladder, and he has a look on his face that's just I don't necessarily want to be here.
Absolutely.
But there's nothing I can do.
I don't disagree. I wouldn't call victim of circumstance. Is not my ideal phrasing on that, but I do agree that he's not a terrible person. I don't think every person in the Empire is a bad person. I might sound harsh on the Empire, some of the Empire characters on this podcast, although we haven't talked much about that era yet. But there is something to the idea that, obviously the Galactic Empire is a much bigger organization even than something like Nazi Germany, which is an obvious analog for.
Right.
So it's harder to say that, you don't want to say the good or these Nazi soldiers that weren't monsters. I believe in not calling necessarily human beings monsters. Maybe even not the worst human beings I don't necessarily think should be called monsters. So I'm in agreement with that, but I don't think there's that's a small enough scale thing that I do have trouble with people that are like that go like, oh well, not everyone fighting for the Nazis was bad. But with the Empire, if you think in a logical way, that the galaxy is so massive, that news travels so slowly, and it's also being suppressed by the Emperor. There are definitely people that are victims of misinformation and all that kind of thing. So I don't. It's a more complicated situation even than a lot of real world ones.
It's interesting that it was something that George, because I know in the original script of Return of the Jedi, there was a whole thing with Jar Jar where he's given the order to fire the Death Star on Endor, and he struggles with that decision and can't necessarily bring himself to it. So it's interesting that it's something George was also willing to explore too, that not everybody in the Empire is necessarily bad, but the Empire is still absolutely terrible. And
it's about the bureaucracy of the Empire that crushes the individual, and that's true. Just because he's not a bad person doesn't mean he's not complicit in the system by partaking in it, if that makes sense.
Right, but, exactly. I mean, the man was building the second Death Star,
and
had to do it in a quarter of the time that Orson Krennic had to do it. Read Catalyst, people, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Oh my god, that book is great. Yeah. We'll have talked a lot about. I have some topics to talk about for our episode we're recording tomorrow that came out last week, involving adult Star Wars novels versus the focus of this podcast, and we'll talk about that. I'm sure we'll have talked about that already. But anyway, my I've kind of expressed a lot of my hottest Star Wars takes. I feel like, which is and I don't know how hot a lot of them are at this point either, because I keep discovering more and more people that agree. I guess the thing that pisses people off the most is I basically almost basically all the Star Wars movies from all the different eras.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that gets the people the most mad, is I really love the prequels, and I like, for the most part, the new Disney movies, although I guess I lean a little negative on them to some degree. But the fact, liking The Last Jedi and Revenge of the Sith seems to be a no-go for either side of that camp. So you know what I mean? It's strange, but I think both of them are great. But
yeah, it does feel like you like this one. Well, there's no way you can like this one.
And
no,
Last Jedi specifically, it's actually very prequel-ish to me in terms of its film grammar. But
with the exception of Force Awakens, all of these Disney movies have been very prequel-like, and if you I don't see how especially Rogue One, people who say Rogue One is their favorite Star Wars movie, just. It's the most prequel of them all.
By the way, there is my hottest take. I think Rogue One is bad.
Yeah,
but we've talked about that.
I was about to say that too. Yeah, I think Rogue One's the worst of all. Probably the worst Star Wars movie.
If you don't count the Clone Wars movie, I think it's pretty easy.
Yeah,
but
or the Ewoks movies. But
that's more complicated. I don't know. I still haven't seen the second one. When I watch, we should make that a fun special episode where we can give ourselves a week off and we should watch those.
Yeah, because the first 10 minutes of the second one is they make a creative decision within the first 10 minutes of the movie that's I guess not a creative decision, but a story decision within the beginning of the movie that is it's insane that they did this in the Ewoks movie. So you definitely need to see that.
So, one last... one last. What am I talking about? I haven't even really answered the question, have I? This is the problem, Dan, my brother. There's now dozens of hours of content of me talking about Star Wars, so I feel like I've expressed a lot of the biggest...
We should actually turn this question on him.
We will ask him next
week. So
that's a good way to open the show next week, yeah. And then I'll say this. I was watching Planet of the Apes, the animated series Return to the Planet of the Apes from 1975 earlier this afternoon. And my hottest Star Wars take is that sometimes in my darkest moments, Planet of the Apes is my favorite film franchise.
Oh.
There you go.
now owned by Disney. So
That's true. That's true. I'm curious what I want them to do a TV series. I think they haven't done one since the 70s. I think that's maybe the best option going forward, and they could just jump a few thousand years into the future, and I want to see the true post-apocalypse when the apes are truly ruling the world and are upright and talking, and I want that. So,
yeah, because I don't know what you do with a movie again, especially with for the last trilogy to have ended as strongly as it did.
They could do another movie; it would just have to take place in. They could do the same thing and jump thousands of years ahead and all that. I think they should stick with this current timeline, but obviously Caesar should stay dead, and we should move past the milieu of that trilogy, and whether it's in TV or film form, whatever, they just move back to something sort of similar to the original movie. I don't believe in the idea that this trilogy leads up to that original movie, by the way. I just think there's too many continuity issues.
Either.
But,
Nova.
By the way, there's so many different Novas throughout the years. Yeah, there's a different character named Nova in the Return to the Planet of the Apes, the animated series from 1975, which, by the way, is fascinating and worth checking out.
Good.
You know what? We teased our Austin Powers podcast. We might as well tease our Planet of the Apes podcast. We're going to start a whole network of podcasts that dozens of people might listen to. So
I feel like the Austin Powers thing is untapped. I don't think there's been an Austin Powers podcast yet.
I don't know if there's enough material. Like, you came up with an idea that seems absurd. And I also don't know if I need to do an Austin Powers podcast.
We have options. If after we wrap this, after we put all of Padawan Library into ether and we're done with Padawan Library, then we can discuss if we want to keep podcasting. If we want to stay podcasting partners and unleash "Do I Make You Horny" on the world. So there you go.
We'd have to work on the title. I don't know if with the industry I work in, I want a podcast with my name on it called "Do I Make You Horny?" But we'll have to talk about it.
What if we had a baby to the end of it? Would that make it better?
I think it makes it at least 3 times as bad. We'd have to work on the title. We'll talk about it. Anyway, thank you guys for listening to this. Kind of nothing of an episode. I hope you enjoy it. Next week, we're back to reviewing books. We're going to cover, again, the second Jedi Prince novel. I believe it's Lost City of the Jedi. If I fucked that up, I fucked that up. I don't know what to say.
Who cares?
Who cares? The next Jedi Prince book. And then, a reminder, the week after that is the book Myths and Fables. And I'll talk to you about this off air, but I think we should cover that in a slightly different way than we normally cover books.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that.
I'm interested in that.
And then we're doing Galaxy of Fear Month and then Jedi Prince. So I hope you guys ride out the rest of the year. Thank you for listening. This is episode 28, right? I think. So
yep.
This has been actually a legitimate, great pleasure. And we joke about how few people listen, but the fact that anybody listens is a huge honor. So thank you to the fans. And we'll try to do something like this again. Or if maybe we'll just, when we get emails, we'll cover them on the show. I think that's probably...
Well, we should. I mean, we're going to end up having to do a Jedi Quest wrap-up.
Yeah, we're going to do
Jedi Quest wrap-up and then do...
And we'll have to decide whether we're doing that before or after the Clone Wars books, but we'll figure that out.
But thank you for listening. Thank you for reading along. That's been
the people that read along.
Parts. Yeah, and especially when we get messages from people who are just like, oh, this. Especially, I had some messages whenever we were going through the Join the Resistance books, and just people were just like, oh my God, Mattis, and I'm just like, I know.
Oh, really? I'm sorry I'm not as active on social media as Levi, I hope, but I...
I could do more on social media, but...
It's true, but...
go ahead. I had a thought today. I want a 4th Join the Resistance book, and I want it for one reason alone.
No.
For when Akbar dies in Last Jedi, I want Mattis crying. I want to know his reaction.
That implies
when
that
Akbar
Mattis
dies.
lives, which I feel like that whole crew dies.
Yeah, they have to die.
In Last Jedi.
I don't want to say I dislike them to the point that I hope they die, but
well, they're
I
fictional
kind of
characters.
Those characters to the point that.
Like, we're not talking about real people. We're not talking about Sharon Tate again. We don't need to worry about this. Anyway, please email us, not to open that wound. Please email us at padawanlibrary@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Padawan Library. Send us questions. We might answer them on the show, or we might do another episode like this down the line. But please, next week, if you want to read it, feel free to read the Next Jedi Prince book, Lost City of the Jedi, and definitely check out Myths and Fables. I haven't bought it yet, but I was flipping through it at the store. Beautiful illustrations in that book, some really cool stuff.
Ooh,
so.
I have it coming, so I can't wait to see what it's like. So.
I think it's going to be that'll be an interesting episode.
Is it like a large book? Like
it's larger, for sure, yeah. But it's the official category on its publishing is young readers, which is our category. So all right. So that's why it fits, and I just think it's going to be a fun, kind of different sort of episode for us. So, but then we'll get back to normal, kind of with Galaxy of Fear, and we'll get back to Jude in November. So. I hope we don't lose too many listeners while you're waiting for Jude. Please stick with us, but you guys will. It seems like the numbers bear out that way. So we'll talk to you next week.
All right. Until the books are due back.
The library is closed.
Padawan Library is hosted and produced by Tim May and Levi Peretic. It is edited by Tim May. Our theme song is by the Astral Project. Our artwork is by Freddie Funbuns. Padawan Library is copyright 2019 by Tim May and Levi Peretic. All rights reserved.